Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a senior director at Blackthorn, and today we're going to talk about the unique challenges of platform products. So just to briefly touch on the two companies that I'm going to reference most of my anecdotes here. I currently work for Blackthorn, and the focus is event management and payment workflows on Salesforce. And a previous employer, patron manager, and the focus there was ticket sales and donations on Salesforce. I'd like you to walk away from this session knowing that once your product starts shaping what your users experience, your job gets a lot bigger than feature design and what that means. Thank you to our visionary sponsors and all of our sponsors. Okay, so let's get our brains going. What's one part of your product, whether platform or not, that you don't fully control, and what's your approach to that? So I'm going to take 1 minute for brainstorming, and then you need to find someone else in the room and swap stories. So let's start that now. Doing a little brainstorming.
Say it again?
We're doing a little brainstorming. All right, that's a minute, so please find someone next to you or behind you and swap stories with them. We're going to do that for 2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll meet you halfway.
We need a partner.
It definitely counts as a
Project. I'll let you go first, but I don't know exactly what we're doing, so.
integration, kind of it's 100%. If you're on the platform, if you're on the platform,
Go ahead, tell me yours first.
for those things,
Really don't have much.
you need to for somebody else's platform, Salesforce, of course, so my situation, I would imagine build a database.
That's the real experience.
The infrastructure.
It's 1 minute, so make sure you both get a chance to talk.
My biggest challenge in the past was AI
Go ahead and get started.
Well, we are starting. We're discussing. We're starting. We're discussing.
All this discussion going on.
Yeah, I think that you're much more ahead.
So,
A couple months.
make it non-compliant, less competitive, or are you going to here to tweak your product in a way that will be
Starting. We're discussing.
And then now,
customer experience?
All right. Thank you. That's 2 minutes. All right, so in the next 2 minutes, I would love to just, let's share a few examples. So anyone have a really, like maybe your partner shared something you thought was really unique. Or you can share your unique story. Anyone want to share? It's okay, it's a friendly room, not many of us. Yes?
So I was explaining I just started at a new company. I'm just a month in, but I'm on an innovation team. So we're all about validating is an idea worth building, but then ultimately partnering with other teams if it gets to the point of, yeah, this is worth going to market and the commercialization phase. So there's a lot outside of our control. Figuring out like what data do we have access to, what other products within the company exist, but then the whole go-to-market side of things.
Yeah, so
getting on
internal
their roadmap.
dependencies. Perfect, thank you. What else?
Here we discussed two of them. One of them is customer experience. Some companies believe that they have good management. It's not even say control, but the feedback, the actual experience of the customer is not there.
Okay.
Some places, some APIs come up, and you believe you have the best, but depends on who tests the product. When it goes to the market, to the targeted audience, you find that they're struggling or not the ideal experience, or you didn't get the outcomes of the application you want. And another one is regulations. Sometimes you believe you have the product, you build the product to the current regulations, but probably 6 months later another regulation kicks up.
Shifting sands, right?
You choose.
It's really hard. Yeah, well, thank you so much. Great examples, and I really want to focus in. So dependencies are not unique, right? If you were anywhere near tech last year, you remember that we found out the entire internet is teetering on top of AWS and Cloudflare. If that goes out, we're all out. So that's pretty ubiquitous, and that shows up as cost, uptime, and scale. But what's unique to platform products is that it's a subset of apps that have that platform dependency, and that shows up even more so than infrastructure. It shows up as UX, architecture, roadmap, and support. This is also different. I just want to clarify. This is different from a connector, from a standard, like a standard integration. So I'm not talking about a connector like Zoom for Salesforce. I'm really talking about apps that are built with Salesforce as the source of truth. Salesforce is my area of expertise. I really think this applies across the board for platform products. All right, so I'm going to share a few of the challenges of working in that environment through my experiences. So we had an issue at Blackthorn around our forms. So you attend an event, you fill out a form with your information and preferences. And that's critical to our customers' workflows. So it was built originally with a very classic Salesforce architecture, very hierarchical, where you would submit a form that created a record, and then there were child records, excuse me, for each question-answer pair. Followed the logic of Salesforce, seemed like a great decision at the time, but what that actually meant was you got reports like this one on the left, very small sample, where you'd have 2 lines for Joe S. And then you had a column where you had data like fish and steak alongside of yes. Not very useful, right? This is fine. And what users need was a simple report where there was 1 line per attendee and you had all their data in a really useful fashion so you could sort it, filter it, all of that. We let that pain sit with our customers for a long time. Why did we leave that with them? Why didn't we just fix it? There was a lot underneath. So that was a really critical part of our product that was really critical to our customers' workflow. So sometimes they had automation built off of form submissions. We knew we had to plan a really careful rollout, a rollback. What do you do with a form that is in flight? So people are responding to it in the old data architecture and the new data architecture. How did they report on that? I mean, it really could have been a nightmare. So what we decided to do is do a little more of a Band-Aid, where we created a button and they could click form submission report. It would email them the report in a CSV in the format that they needed it. Not a perfect solution because that takes their data outside of Salesforce, and unified data is kind of our big selling point. But it was workable and it was a lot less risky. But I think this pattern of having to decide where the pain sits when you can't completely solve the pain is pretty common. Sometimes it sits with a product team, which we eventually did take on as a product team. Sometimes you leave it with the customer where they have to do some manual effort if it's not big enough for you to take on or it's not possible. And sometimes it lives with support and ops. I think this one's a little harder to understand Just as an example, when I worked at Blackthorn, Patron Manager. It's really a skin on top of Salesforce. So people who work with Patron Manager, to a lot of folks, it's murky where Patron Manager begins and where Salesforce ends, where one ends and the other begins. And so that meant that we couldn't just point users to Salesforce. A lot of times we had to take on the burden of training them in Salesforce and really help them get around some of the common pain points introduced by Salesforce. We couldn't just pass the buck. So that's an area where Patron Manager came up with really robust training and documentation with a lot of GIFs that was fun to interact with and read, and it worked well. So on that note, users experience one product, but you really are managing a whole ecosystem. So at Patron Manager, it was purpose-built for a specific vertical, kind of like moving into a new building for your whole company, and it's built for your company, for the specifics of your company. That's as opposed to Blackthorn, where we're really building out more of a department for the event planners, but they sit within a larger ecosystem of people using Salesforce. So at Patron Manager, it's often adopted in tandem with Salesforce, rolled out with Salesforce. We're very involved with the implementation. Blackthorn, usually it operates inside a broader platform experience, and it's usually in a later stage of implementation or in the sales process. So on the Patron Manager side, you're really inheriting most of the constraints of Salesforce. In Blackthorn, it's just a subset that impacts your users. So I think this is the key slide of this presentation. Like, what are the real trade-offs? If you're considering building a new product and should it be a platform product or not, these are some of the biggest things you want to keep in mind. And also on the leverage side, the most exciting things that platform products bring. So you certainly have a faster go-to-market. It really narrows who you're focused on. Obviously, we're only focused on Salesforce customers. And there are a lot more tools and mechanisms to support you in that. Salesforce is a system of record. It comes with that big brand and the trust behind it. As far as security goes, as far as infrastructure, it's easy to pitch that alongside of your product, as opposed to point solutions that don't have that same trust. Ecosystem reach, Salesforce has a highly developed app exchange, and so that is a wonderful place to find our customers, and there are standards involved that also provide that level of trust to customers. And finally, shared improvements. Hey, the great thing about customers not always understanding where your product ends and Salesforce begins is sometimes they also confuse Salesforce improvements with your own improvements that you're providing them, so you get some benefit from that. Let's talk about the constraints. What's the hard part? So roadmap risk. I have absolutely experienced big delays in our roadmap because Salesforce says, you know what? We're going to change the way that time zones work. Oh, for an event planning company, that's a big problem if you get the time zone wrong, right? So that really delayed our roadmap and our plans. Pricing constraints. Salesforce has a pretty strict per user pricing model. So that limits the way that we can charge our customers for usage of our product. Platform limits. This is a big driver right now in platform products, moving pieces of their functionality off of Salesforce's microservices. There are serious governor limits in Salesforce where if you hit it, it's just going to stop working. And it's not just going to make your product stop working. Everything in Salesforce is going to stop working. And believe me, you do not want to be on the other end of a phone call from a customer who says, all these other departments are really mad about Blackthorn right now because it's screwing everything up for us. Finally, cannibalization. It's a very real risk. So the symbiotic relationship with Salesforce means that they rely on their ecosystem of apps to fill in gaps where they haven't perhaps gotten down to the granular needs of a specific vertical. It provides a really robust product landscape where they can't necessarily be everywhere, even with all of the billions of dollars they have behind them. But there's a very real risk that they could decide, actually, event management is critical enough to this vertical that we're going into. We're just going to build it. It causes too much friction in the sales process, or we've heard a few bad things about Blackthorn. We're just going to build this piece, and then you're up a creek without a paddle. We had this happen just with a piece of our payments product, and we're very closely integrated with Slack, and Slack built some functionality that we had put effort into. So all of a sudden, we stopped our roadmap there, but that was some lost work on our part. Finally, I want to tell you a little bit about what's happening at Blackthorn that touches on the decision of how to live with the platform, and sometimes the question is not how to live with these constraints, but how much to move away from them so those constraints stop impacting you in such a severe way. So this is what Blackthorn looks like today for the most part. We use the, sorry about that stripe down the middle, that's not there. We follow the Salesforce Lightning design system. So our product, even though it's not all Salesforce native interfaces, it looks a lot like Salesforce. It looks unified. Here is what Blackthorn is probably going to look like sometime later this year. We are taking the entirety of the user experience for event planners and moving it to a web app so that it is not seamlessly in Salesforce anymore. A lot of this is driven by the fact that one of our biggest pain points with customers is that it's really hard to learn to use Salesforce. Like, they have this great trailhead, they have all these mentorships, but it is still a big effort, especially when you're coming from a simpler event planning platform like Eventbrite, for example. That's all they do. So you can bet that that is a seamless user experience. There are not a lot of hurdles there. With Blackthorn, the power and the complexity of that platform really introduced a lot of friction in the sales cycle. It's a hard piece of the adoption. And so we've decided it's a big enough problem that we want to really take on the UX and move outside of Salesforce in some ways. Now, we're still keeping the integrity of the data. Salesforce is still the system of record. It's the truth. I'm losing the phrase.
Where the data lives.
It's where the data lives. Thank you. The source of truth for the data. So that still remains, but really everything else we're taking on ourselves, and part of that is because we can with AI. So just a peek into what that trade-off looks like. I would like to end with a little debate. So I'm not using Salesforce because I think Slack is more ubiquitous. I want to talk about the fact that Slack has added native tools like lists and workflow builder, but it also has a large marketplace of project management apps. So the question is, should Slack stop short of becoming a true project management product and leave deeper, and leave deeper project management workflows to partners? And I would love for you to think about this for 1 minute and then hear from one person who is arguing that they should leave it to the partners, and one person arguing that they should become a true project management product. So let's take 1 minute before we start our debate, gather your thoughts, develop an opinion. No, it depends. That's a boring answer. Just put a stake in the ground.
I think it makes a ton of sense.
That's what I do. We have one complete system from the raw materials to the end of the life cycle. We manage the front end user interface and how connect with analytics.
I would love it if I.
All right, that's 1 minute. Thank you so much for the debate. I love that you involved some people next to you. Perfect. So let's hear from one person who is arguing that Slack should become a true project management product. All right.
I'm going to go a different direction than like exactly that. Because my question is like, what is their budget and what's their business and stuff? Because that
depends on how
It
I answer
depends.
this, right?
Yes,
But
yeah. What
like
are the
like-
arguments for them becoming?
well, they could purchase these partners and still keep them as separate teams and keep the focus while still being able to be this. Generally, I like it when products like do stay in their own lane, but if I'm gonna argue, I'll argue in that direction.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Well, it sounds like most of you are actually on the other side of leaving deeper PM workflows to partners. Can I hear from one person arguing for that and what your argument is?
I go with the sub brand. I think they should do it because I think it's a logical thing. How they end up doing it or how they end up executing on it is sort of this implication. The question, should Slack stop short of becoming a true product manager? Slack the product, probably. Slack the brand or Slack the organization or sub product line inside of Salesforce. Probably should.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're both saying they should own that value. They should have some control over it, but keep it
I'm
separate.
very unsure.
Okay.
I feel like,
Okay.
I'm very unsure. I feel like I don't know what their business goal is, so it's hard for me to say.
Right.
Like, if their business goal is to, like, who are they trying to compete with? Like, what? Like, I just have a lot of questions.
Sure. Okay. Cool. Anyone want to argue on one or the other pole, like really far one direction or another? No. Okay. I like it. Complex thinkers. Yeah.
Like the presentation you did, you're trying to separate yourself from the Salesforce, right? It is a similar kind of question you have here, but what you presented was you are using Salesforce, and on top of it, you're building your product. But now you presented a case where you say, like, it is better not to depend on Salesforce, but to build your own thing without much dependencies on the Salesforce. The challenge is, because of Salesforce, you are able to market easily with customers, and everyone agrees, like, okay, this is something to do with sales. But when you become independent by yourself, how are you going to convince your customers to use Blackhorn product without actually referencing Salesforce?
It's a good question. We don't actually lose a lot of the tailwinds of Salesforce being behind us. We can still pitch that because the data lives in Salesforce, that is really the source of the integrity of that data, and you get that benefit of having your data in the same place where you run the rest of your business. Because event planners largely just work on event planning, they don't usually have to stray outside of Blackthorn to use other parts of the system. So we're not anticipating a lot of pushback there. We're still filling a need for organizations that are implementing Salesforce for the first time, and having the UX moved out of Salesforce doesn't do a lot to degrade that. The question of how the data is being moved to and from the web app is certainly a point of discussion during the sales process, and it'll be a bigger point of discussion now, but I think we can take that on. It's a good question. We do have time for a little bit of Q&A before the next session.
This is, I think, that challenge is, like, even Microsoft has had this challenge over the years is, I think for a while they kept stepping into, around the OS into all their partners. Like, they had partners doing antivirus, and they go, well, we got antivirus embedded, and et cetera. And so I think there's always a balancing act. But if I take a place like Slack, if I look at it and I probably would want to do some segmentation study, and part of our discussion here was, like, if I'm a company and I'm not already using a project management tool and I just need some basic stuff, I might really want Asana to include that. But if I use Slack to use that, but if I'm already using Asana or whatever else, I would rather that Asana task easily get converted into, or Slack task get easily converted. So I think there's got to be some segmentation look at it and not say, this is our one, it's this way and only this way.
Agreed. And Salesforce has a solution like that where it's very, very simple events. It can support that. It gets more complicated when you move into capacity management, for example. That's one thing. Waitlisting. I can also tell you about a time when Salesforce really was a big tailwind for us, specifically at Blackthorn. We were trying to move kind of casually more into the advancement space within universities. We already served a huge swath of universities for their for their admissions and recruitment departments. And Salesforce, at around the same time, decided that they wanted to get more into advancement and alumni organizations, and as part of rolling out their education cloud that they were pushing very hard. So they're pouring probably millions of dollars into their marketing budget for that, and they were happy that we were able to come alongside and say, yes, Salesforce works well with Blackthorn, and therefore we can meet all of your needs as an advancement organization. And we got that great benefit of all of a sudden there are all these new Salesforce customers that are ripe for a Salesforce native product.
I have a question about how do you deploy your product on top of Salesforce, and how long does it take?
That's
Because
a constraint. That should be on this slide.
because
Yeah.
from my experience, we also have like platform that works deeply integrated into Salesforce, so it works also as a standalone application.
Yeah.
But most of our customers work with Salesforce, so that's why they're using it inside Salesforce. So, and deployment time takes us like a long time.
Yeah.
So how it works for you?
Sure. I think there are different ways to approach it. The way that we approach it is that we have web app rollouts that that impact all of our customers immediately. And then we have the Salesforce piece of it that they can install at any point as an upgrade. And so the downside is that we are supporting customers who sometimes are 16 months behind our releases. We're like, come on, join the future. But it's a lot of work. They have to test it in a sandbox, make sure it doesn't break critical workflows for them. So that provides us a little safety maybe, but it is also a big burden on our support team. And it means that we have to build every new feature to be backwards compatible by quite a bit.
Do you kind of say backwards by 5 or?
We do, but it's hard to really enforce that, because it's like, well, you all were slackers, it's your fault, but if it means that their business is being taken down, you still need to support them.
Yeah.
So we say it, I wouldn't say that we fully enforce it.
Fair.
Yeah.
You say you have to test the sandbox. Do you see AI speeding up a lot of that to help them? Okay. How are you seeing that play out?
I think that the building a new UI, especially, that's a place where it's sped up the most. And in fact, it's been a little painful because sometimes leadership says, well, it's so fast, just tell Figma, what's my favorite? All the different tools that are building UI really fast right now. Tell it what you want, and then if you don't like it, change it. And that skips so many design steps and UX steps, right? So you can look at something like what I showed, and it's like, oh, it's so pretty. Well, is that really what your customers want? Does it really help with their main objective? And even if you have users testing it out, you're showing them what you think they want, right? That's different. You're all product professionals, you know this.
Are they not getting as much feedback because of that? They're like, oh, this looks beautiful, but they're actually not going to the customers to find out what they think?
I am fighting really hard that we must go to the customers to find out what they think, no matter how pretty it is, right? Yeah. Right now we're hearing from a lot of customers, oh, this is so pretty, but they haven't tried to plan an event with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any other points of view from these constraints that you've worked within?
Well, for example, the larger enterprises, they're trying to probably integrate, obviously, that's why it takes so much to have something that all the customers migrate to your revisions. Is there a plan to probably, I don't know, in the roadmap that these organizations will become more solution for other type of companies, the smaller companies or so, because the big enterprises are doing their integrations, and as you said, you may rather have Asana to be your primary go-to and pull from Slack or so. And everybody's becoming smarter about integration. So they were not going to look probably at Salesforce as a solution for everything or have their data residing there. They're pulling their data, they're designing these agents that go and pull from the warehouses, data marts, what they need, and they don't need a whole platform to host it.
It's a risk, for sure. And I imagine that we will have some of our smaller customers do that if they have really simple events. I would say that what we are experts in and what is really hard to replicate is capacity management. If you have an event that goes on sale and you have 1,000 people trying to get 500 tickets, that is a really critical workflow, and it is one that is hard to build. I'm trying to think of other pieces. There's the payment processing piece, which can be complicated. There are really complex areas of our product that are hard to replicate, but certainly if you're not using those, maybe you build something. It's possible.
Are you doing like a wait room like for concert tickets where they have to like wait to sign up for the event in that case with the high capacity? Or how are you guys solving it?
No, we didn't do a wait room, and that's like if we did that, it might have filled a very small gap. But at this point, because we're able to handle that in a microservice, we're talking milliseconds. So really, we can handle what our customers need with our new service that we built.
I also have a general question. So Blackthorn works with Salesforce, probably customers mostly.
Only.
But like, did you have this challenge when you already serve, I don't know, multiple customers, and each of them needs something specific? So you add this feature to your Blackthorn solution, for example. So and it's feature-specific, client-specific feature. So,
I'm sorry, this sounds like a really good question, but I don't want to hog the room for the next speaker.
Okay,
Can we
so-
take it out into the hallway? And anyone who wants to hear about that, you're welcome to join us. Thank you so much for coming. It's my first time presenting here, so it was nerve-wracking.